month or so earlier. And then freezing it. We'd quite literally be putting our child, or children, on ice. Actually, I think they store them in liquid nitrogen, I corrected, a new expert in a field I'd known next to nothing about only a few days earlier. We'd also be putting you through all kinds of invasive procedures unnecessarily, because there's nothing wrong with you, Tim had said, and it was impossible not to hear the pain and regret in his voice. He was angry. No, more than that. He was furious with his body for failing him so cataclysmically for the first time in all of its 30 years. We don't know how long it's going to take you to beat this thing, I reasoned, hoping the positivity in my voice was powerful enough to fool him. And it could be years before we're ready for children. This way, we won't have to worry about whether my fertility has dropped off by the time we're ready. We'd already have a freeze-dried baby all ready to go. Just add water, he had joked, pulling me even closer against his bony ribcage. Exactly, I said, my mouth against his skin, where hopefully he couldn't feel the trembling of my lips, or the dampness on my cheeks from the tears that were falling silently in the darkness of our bedroom. Let's go for it then, he whispered into my ear. Let's make some babies. Chapter 1. Beth. I have a good nose. I don't mean its shape, which is fairly ordinary and fits in perfectly well with my other features. My husband Tim once claimed that I'm beautiful, which was charmingly biased and also inaccurate. What I mean about my nose is that my sense of smell is uncommonly acute. Admittedly, I didn't fare quite so well with some of the other senses. For a start, I'm completely tone-deaf, which is kind of funny as I ended up falling in love with a musician. But a good sense of smell is a definite advantage if all you've ever wanted to do is work with flowers. Or, better still, own your own florist shop. Happily, I did both. Is there anything else you'd like me to do before I leave for the day, Mrs. Brandon? Beth. I looked up from the bouquet of peonies I was tying and smiled at Natalie, my assistant, who, even after 6 months of working for me, occasionally forgot to call me by my first name. My fingers were working at speed, securing and knotting the rustic string around the stems with the dexterity of a practised fisherman. Have you got any plans for this afternoon? Natalie asked, as I followed her to the door and flipped the swinging sign from open to closed. Nothing particular, I replied with a smile, as I ushered her onto the pavement and slid the bolt in place. She didn't know me well enough to spot the lie. It was a smooth eviction, and hopefully she hadn't noticed my haste. Standing in the empty shop, I let the familiar odours and sounds settle around me, like a security blanket. The buzz of the overhead lights and the hum of the large refrigerators where the most delicate blooms were stored combined to drown out the sound of traffic from the high street. The shop was in a great position, and its reputation had grown steadily in the 6 years since we'd opened it. I ran my hand over the polished wooden counter, waiting for the usual grounding sensation to calm me. But today, the shop failed to work its magic. Early closing day was typically when I met with clients or caught up on paperwork, but there was something else on my agenda for this afternoon. I only managed to eat half of the meal deal sandwich I'd bought that morning, before throwing the rest into the bin beneath my desk. Perhaps I should have done the same thing with the strong Americano coffee, because the last thing I needed was an extra injection of caffeine, not when I was already so wired. This is ridiculous, I muttered to myself as I went through the familiar ritual of locking up the shop and setting the alarm. I'm only speaking to my husband. Why am I so uptight? Because you know he won't be happy about this, an annoyingly accurate inner voice replied. I drowned it out by turning up the car radio to a volume usually favoured by teenage boys and wove through the early afternoon traffic.